we had to build a new house with a 3-car garage. That garage has to be now an assessment.
I'm not saying, we're talking about the adequate facilities tax. You
Yeah.
do not get to charge them the 70 cents for that. The act specifically says you can.
Okay.
So that they're free and clear on that part. Now, whatever other taxes or assessments come into play, that's separate.
All right. I was viewing it as a original construction kind of. I'll talk about it. You want to hit play again, and we'll go back into our agenda.
I just hit play.
Did you? Okay.
All right. So any discussion on questions for Marshall on what he just went over? We've already signed that up. Now if we can move on to new business, I believe that Marshall and our law director will discuss some ongoings with our adequate facilities tax. Marshall?
I'll tell you what I know about it, which is not a whole lot, but I do realize it takes a while to course correct a big ship like the adequate facility tax. It's nothing that can be done in just a few days. So we're in the process, I think, of trying to course correct here. Back latter part of last year, I decided to do a deep dive into the adequate facility tax and learn the history of it from '99 all the way to today. So I got with Jennifer Mitchell in the recorder's office and asked her to give me everything you got on adequate facility tax, and she brought back a stack of stuff about an inch thick at least.
Yeah.
With lots of amendments and lots of voting throughout the years, and it's like putting together a puzzle, really. It took me a while to get it all together, and a binder. And then I kind of realized then that we have two conflicting documents. One is the private act, and one is the 2007 resolution 0704-04. You know, I'm just a builder's person. I don't know the legalities of it, how one may make another one irrelevant or not enforceable. It wasn't until sometime later that I had learned that. And that's when I basically brought it to David Long's attention that we got two things here and what I do. And David pretty much knew right off that that one of them probably wasn't enforceable. And that's kind of how all this started as far as from my perspective. And then maybe Attorney Eric can take it from there.
Well, yeah, and I can tell you that when I realized that that business was not part of that assessment, then I started asking questions myself, and me and one of the other commissioners have been trying to look into this along with your help. And it was a great service you did by continuing to dig, because I mean, you know, this is at the end of the day it matters. But Eric, if you want to kind of give us a little background on what you found.
Sure. I think what all the discussion hinged around is industrial versus the term commercial, I believe. And so we had to do a kind of a deep dive on this. I went through the minutes, and to Marshall's point, it was very, it was a labyrinth, because the minutes were stored in a fashion where notations were made on those that didn't get reflected to the resolution. Don't know if the proposed amendments went in. Then you look at the actual minutes, and there were several resolutions that got up and down, and we finally ended up with the, I know it's 0202, what is it, 07? 070202?
0704.
Yeah, and that's the one that did mainly the carve out for commercial versus industrial. So then we started going back to the adequate facilities tax. And to put things in perspective, what we've got going on here is the state makes a law that says stealing's illegal. The county passes a resolution that says, no, stealing's okay, you can do it in Sumner County. Well, you're never going to be able to, as a county, circumvent state law.
Correct.
That's always going to be in play. You can pass it all day long, it's just got no effect. And that's basically what I've determined that 070202 does. It's in play, but it has no enforceability to it under the commercial aspect, which I think is pretty much all they focused on there. So then when you get into the act, it's the Private Act 1999, Chapter 57, and it is referred to as the Sumner County Adequate Facilities Tax. Well, they go through a bunch of definitions, and in law, you always know you start with the definitions, because that's gonna play a big game on how you read stuff. And it specifically says an industrial means the development of any property for use by any person in a business classified as industrial under the United States government standard industrial classification. I don't know if y'all seen that, if anybody's got a copy of that.
Yeah, I believe Marshall gave us all,
You name the business, I guarantee it falls in here as industrial.
Yes.
So this is pretty much a catch-all. So we can't pass a resolution that tells us that we can do something different than the act and the classification. The only authority the county would have, by resolution, they can adopt administrative guidelines, procedures, regulations, and forms necessary to properly implement. So that's all procedural stuff. It's
Yeah.
not interpretation of what gets taxed and doesn't get taxed. And that's the only part of this act I can find where they may have been trying to hang their hat on that resolution. And then it does have certain exemptions, and as was brought up before, they're classic ones you'd expect: public buildings, places of worship, barns or outbuildings for ag purposes, previous existing structures destroyed by fire or other disaster, then some nonprofit exemptions if you fall within the certain IRS qualification. And then the last one is additions to an existing family dwelling. So everything else can apply, but as far as the adequate facility tax, that is not required to be paid. The garage we were talking about would be the example, an attached garage. You would not charge or assess the 70 cent square foot tax on that. They'd have to pay whatever other stuff and take the value hit.
so we're just talking about heated and cooled square footage is all that we're assessing.
On the tax, heating square foot, on the building permit, everything on the roof, that's how we do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Conditioned or non-conditioned space?
It does not stipulate in this
Okay.
act. That's where you get to play in the gray.
Yeah.
And it does have some requirements that the tax shall be collected before they receive a building permit. And it also has some carve-outs for what the municipalities are required to do, but based on a case that's worked its way through with Gallatin and the SCRO a while back, that's gonna be a hard one to navigate at the moment. However, it doesn't relieve the municipalities from working under whatever guidelines we put out there. We say, hey, A, B, and C need to be checked off, or these people aren't getting a permit.
Correct.
The money's gotta be collected, or they're not getting a permit. And that's where we get to dig in our heels and say, no, not till we get the money. There is an appeals process. It's very similar to what was discussed about that overpayment you all were just talking about. But in this instance, the disputed amount would have to be paid before they could appeal it. And it would come to you all on an appeal and have to be heard within, they have to file it within 10 days, and it would have to be scheduled to be heard within 45 days. But just in a quick shotgun blast, that's where the act applies to us now and what most of the conversation's about.
Well, from my perspective, it's a great thing, great work on everybody's part that's got out of here and clarified this. I think, and I know a question probably a lot of people are thinking, and as law director, do we have the capacity since 2007? This is when uncollected. We weren't following the law. Do we have the capacity to claw any of this back?
I would prefer to answer that question under executive session.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, this is all interesting that it's,
I would just like to say, for all the good people who's listening, there was a state comptroller audit in 2008 and another one in 2014, and that was before me and my staff came on
Yes.
on duty here, so.
Since you brought that up, if I may, Chairman.
Sure.
I believe the comptroller, I've got the report, I've read them, and I believe the comptroller was relying solely on the collection of taxes itself. I don't think they were diving into definitions and terms, so some of this can be taken with a grain of salt because they're not attorneys and they're not even going to make some sort of a final overview or review that they put out in print where they're gonna advise you on how to steer that way, but I don't think they were looking at the actual act itself, the definitions, and where there was some issue with the resolution and the act itself. So, but beyond that, it had some great suggestions on how to get the cities on board. So if anybody hadn't read it, I'd strongly encourage you to look at it, because it's got some great form ideas, templates, check boxes you may want to make sure is on it, so I put that out there.
Great information. Well, this is good stuff. I can, and I know, didn't they discuss potentially how much money we've probably lost as a county because of our failures to?
I'll say this because it was public record. Last night in budget, a very, very conservative estimate on the finance director's part was about $15 million.
Well, can't put milk back in the cow, but that's
We can
good to
stop
know.
it dripping.
You can stop it. Well, and then from my perspective, this looks like that there's gonna be a lot more work on our building codes directors here in their office, so but
I'd just like to also say there's gonna be a lot more, responsibility, that's gonna come before the Board of Construction Appeals too, but
yeah. So buckle up.
that's related to that facility tax and who's to pay it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that. Well, we're all big guys here. We're ready to serve however we can. Anybody got anything else?
I would just like to put out there, I don't normally come to this meeting, but that doesn't mean I can. If you ever need me, just reach out and I'll be here.
Yes,
Whatever
sir.
questions you may have, or email me or give me a shout.
Well, we appreciate everything
Sir.
everything you brought to us tonight, Mr. Law Director and Marshall. It's good information.
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
See you.